What's up guys, my name is PJ, welcome to my channel. I am super excited to talk about the topic of today's video. This is something that has genuinely helped change my life. These practices and these processes that we're going to talk about are truly life-changing. They have truly changed my life. And as someone who is a type 9 on the Enneagram, if you know what that is, the personality typing systems of the Enneagram. As someone who is a type 9, my type, I have had a hard time. Type 9s are known to be, I have more videos on the Enneagram, by the way, on my channel, but it's something I'm very passionate about. And type 9s are known to be kind of the ones that have the hardest time defining what they want, figuring out their vision for their life, and not going along with other people's plans, but rather coming up with their own plans. So the things that we're going to talk about today have been truly life-changing for me as a type 9 individual. You know, someone who really has to work on clarifying what they want and figuring out their vision, figuring out their goals and going after them, and creating a structure that the fulfillment of those goals becomes kind of second nature as a result of having that structure and system in place. But we're going to talk about all that fun stuff in a little bit. But first, let's ask you this question. What do you want? That is the starting point of all of this conversation. All of this video, this whole video starts with that one question. What do you want? Do you know the answer to that? Do you know what you want? Do you know what you want this year, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 12 years from now? Do you have a vision? Do you have a destination in mind? Now, I am a firm believer that the journey, in a sense, is the destination, right? But I have personally spent many years lacking direction. And if I were to compare seasons or chapters or years of my life where I decided to just kind of don't have a vision and kind of just go, with the flow, so to speak, which I think some people could benefit from going with the flow, right? This is all an individual pursuit, right? Some people would benefit more from going with the flow, and some people, like myself, would benefit more from having a very clear direction and setting that vision for themselves. And it all starts with the question, what do you want? The moment I asked myself that question, my entire life changed because, as I said earlier, as someone who, and this actually goes for a lot of us. I'm not going to even specify this to a certain type of person. Earlier I was talking about how, some people would benefit more from going with the flow. But for me, if I were to compare the seasons of my life, the chapters and the seasons and the years of my life that I had vision versus the ones that I was just completely kind of hands in the air, God take the wheel, so to speak, wherever life takes me, I'll go kind of vibe. When I was in that mindset, every single time I would say the chapters that I had a clear direction, a clear vision for my life, those chapters were far more fulfilling, far more exciting, far more meaningful, far more fruitful in all areas of my life. And so I wanted to, and earlier I did preface this by saying some people would benefit more by being in that surrendered state and going with the flow because they are so uptight. Some people, such as myself, and earlier I prefaced by saying type 9s on the Enneagram, that type of personality type, those type of people would benefit more from having a very clear vision because they lack that rigidity. Some people are too rigid, too structured, right? Everything has to go along, according to the plan that they have. And some people are too basically hands in the air, kind of, just life wherever you take me, it's fine. And so the people who are more tense would benefit from reading a book such as The Surrender Experiment. Someone like me would really not benefit from having that mindset because what is lacking, what is medicine for one person is poison for another, right? So for me, I need less of that kind of surrender, whatever happens, happens, whatever's meant to happen, happen, and more from having a direction. So all of that to say that when I ask myself the question, what do you want, considering the type of person I am, and I would go ahead and say, and again, the whole purpose of this video is to talk about setting a vision for your life, getting clear about that, I would go ahead and say that not just type 9s, not just people like myself who need that direction, maybe more so, but every one of us needs that and benefits from that. And it all starts, this journey of gaining clarity in our lives starts with the question, what do you want? So do you know that? What do you want? The next year, the next 5 years, the next 10 years, the next 12 years, do you know that? And when you get clear about that, and here's why that's important, by the way. For the most part, society gives us these stories, gives us these chapters, right? So you go to kindergarten, then you go to elementary school, and you go to high school, then you go to college, then you go, get married. And there's these kind of programs, so to speak, or mandates or storylines, or missions, if you will, that society gives to all of us, right? So society does a very good job at giving us these pre-made stories that it wants us to take our part in, the story of going to school, the story of getting a job, the story of getting married, the story of having children. But at some point, and again, this doesn't just go for type 9s. I prefaced, saying I'm a type 9, those type of people would really benefit from doing something like this. But for everyone, right? A lot of us go through life on this autopilot, and we're following society's mandates, we're following society's storylines, we're following society's structures for us, these checkpoints that society has of school and all those things I just mentioned. But at some point, those storylines, those story loops, those missions, those assignments by society, those mandates, those programs that society has for us, those at some point end. And we find ourselves in midlife with the question, what do I want? Cue midlife crisis right here. This is what midlife crisis is all about. Society is really good at giving us these stories to be a part of, these missions, these checkpoints, until it's not, until it runs out of stories for us to be a part of, until it runs out of these checkpoints. There's no longer school, elementary school, middle school, high school, college, get married, get a job, have children. Like after that, it kind of ends. Those storylines kind of ends. Those are kind of the buckets, so to speak, that society offers. And then after that, it doesn't offer anything. So it's up to us. The earlier we do this in life, the better, right? Because you don't want to hit that midlife crisis point, hit midlife, and then try to ask yourself this question. It's better to do it just like, when you're trying to boost your immune system, it's better to do it proactively, preventatively, so to speak. And it's better to ask ourselves, what do I want, proactively and as a preventive kind of approach, to midlife crisis, to regret at the end of our life, so to speak. So when you ask yourself, what do you want? And this is where our video entirely begins. That question is the birthing ground of this entire video, these entire concepts that we're going to talk about in this video. So when you ask yourself that question, you embark upon a very meaningful and awesome journey. So now in this video, I'm going to pull from a lot of different books I've read, a lot of different videos I watched. And so the video is kind of like an amalgamation of various different ideas that I have experimented with, I have toyed around with in my life, I have put into practice and implemented. But more importantly than anything else, this video is based on my own experiences, based on my own trial and error of trying hundreds of thousands of different kinds of modalities of trying to get clarity, trying to accomplish goals, trying to have structure in your life, trying to have a plan, a vision, a sense of clarity, a sense of purpose in your life. And this is the summation, this is the nectar, so to speak, this is the juice of all that stuff. This is the best of the best. I'm combining all of them in a system that I personally use in order for you to also use and benefit from, and in hopes that you find these things as helpful and as life-changing as I have found them. So let's begin. So first, let's start by setting your 12-year vision. This is something that I have done in my life, and the first book that I'm going to pull something from right now is something we're going to use right now, or at least briefly mention. And it's a book called Hero on a Mission by Donald Miller. And in that book, Donald Miller, which a little, preface about that book is a book I read in 2022. I would say without a doubt, like just hands down easily the best book I read in 2022. And this book, what it did for me is throughout my life, I would get these disparate, like these separate, these all over the place kind of ideas, these golden nuggets, these puzzle pieces would be the best way to look at it. I would find a little puzzle piece here, a little puzzle piece here. Oh, like when I set a structure or when I schedule things like this, it helps me. Or when I think about my vision in this way, it helps me. So throughout my life, through different experiments and experiences, I would come across these puzzle pieces, these golden nuggets. And then I read this book and I was truly shocked that for the first time ever, somebody else literally shared all those experiences and all those nuggets that I had recovered and found and then discovered, and all those puzzle pieces. This book talked about all of them. Donald Miller talked about all of them. And I was genuinely shocked that someone else has had these similar life experiences and learned these very similar lessons and have come to very similar conclusions as me. Now, I don't use every single, recommendation in that book or his exact processes and procedures, because ultimately these things have to be personal for us and what works best for us. So everything in that book works really well for him and thousands of others that book has helped. I don't use I don't use every single thing in a book, but, one idea that is in the book that is kind of the inspiration for what we're talking about here, this 12-year vision. This 12-year vision is based on an idea that I got from that book, which I personally don't use this exact idea, and I'll tell you why. And it's this idea where he says, let's do this practice of writing your own obituary. When, imagine it's like your funeral, right? And what does your obituary say? So for him, it's like Donald was a father of, 2, and he was a loving father, and he was a great husband, and this and that. And basically he has that. And he's done this practice with a lot of people in the juvie, facility, and a lot of different people from different walks of life have benefited from this practice because it gives you such a long-term vision, right? But when I personally tried to do this, it seemed so far. Now we are not promised another day, right? So it's not like, we know basically like when our last day is. But for me, that idea felt super far, and what I tried to do was to make it a little bit more manageable by bringing it down to my longest term vision being a 12-year vision instead of a lifetime kind of vision. Because 12-year, what I found with 12-year is it's long enough that seems like a lifetime, like when you think of 12 years ago, it's like, it's crazy. Like, for me, it's like I was a child, 12 years ago, I'm 29 right now. And so it's like, it seems like a lifetime, but yet it is more manageable than the actual lifetime, than the obituary kind of practice. So even though I agree with a lot of the ideas in the book and a lot of his way of going about things, but for me, replacing the obituary with the 12-year plan is more helpful. Now, fun fact as to why I decided to go with the 12-year instead of the 10-year. The 10-year is just as long. It seems just as much like a lifetime, so to speak. But the reason I went with the 12-year kind of approach for me, which I haven't seen like that many people talk about this, but it's because it's a fun fact that I learned somewhere that there's this thing called the spiritual clock, I believe it's called. And the spiritual clock talks about how there are these 12-year phases in our life. So every 12 years, from age 1 to 12, that's one phase of your life. From 12 to 24, that's another phase. So these are like, it's like if you imagine like a clock, like a circle, every 12, and a clock is 12 hours, right? Every 12 years, you're going through a new cycle, a new season. So at 24, a new season starts. At 36, a new season starts. And I just felt like it's a cool number. It repeats in a lot of things. 12 disciples, 12 hours, 12 months. And then like a season is 12 weeks. I just felt like it's a cool repeating kind of number that we see in nature a lot. So I went with that because a lot of people talk about a 10-year vision, but for some reason the 12, you just add those 2 years, it starts to make it seem really like a lifetime away, So I don't know, I kind of like that, and that was kind of like the fun fact of the spiritual clock or the spiritual wheel, I think it's called. I'm not exactly sure, but if I find some sort of, I think there's a good video I watched on it one time from Stephanie Azaria, who is a phenomenal, probably the best astrologer one of the best astrologers I've ever came across, and she is the person I've heard about this from originally, and Elliot Holz, who used to get Stephanie Azaria's readings. But anyways, that's completely, off track, but I just wanted to mention that because the idea of the spiritual clock is pretty cool, so I wanted to kind of implement a little bit of that into this practice. So let's start by envisioning ourselves 12 years down the road, 12 years into the future. Really start imagining, well, first of all, what year would it be? Make this practice real for yourself. Bring it to life in your imagination. Really, really live it out, in your imagination. Really, figure out how old, will you be? For me, in my case, when I did this practice in my journal over there, I will be 41 years old. The year will be 2035. And so that makes it a lot more real for me. So when I close my eyes and start envisioning, okay, 41-year-old PJ, what kind of life do I envision for myself? And when you're doing this for yourself, take away all the breaks, take away all the limits. The imagination is limitless, and so are you. And especially what I love about these long-term visions, right, is that if I try to imagine what I can accomplish by the end of next week, right, that immediately kind of pushes me back into reality, and it's like, well, you can't do that, or you can't do this, or you can't accomplish that, like I can't put on, 30 pounds of muscle by next Friday or something like that, right? But all of a sudden, when you start thinking in terms of 12 years, dreams that in a week time span, in a year time span, in a 3-year time span may seem unattainable, all of a sudden become very attainable. When you start thinking, like, think of yourself 12 years ago. Like, think about how long it kind of feels, 12 years ago. Like, think about the chapter, the season of life you were in, and how long it feels and seems like from then to now, and if you were really trying to accomplish something like nonstop for 12 years, like, just truly how much you could accomplish if you were consistent, right? So take away all the breaks, take away all the limits, and start imagining and envisioning your ideal life. And what I have found, that ideal life and ideal day, right? So go through a day in your life, in your imagination. What does the ideal day look like in different categories? And now this brings me to another book, another resource that I've gotten an idea from in my life and in my kind of figuring out of putting together this process. And this book is called Will It Fly, which is a business book completely unrelated to any kind of type of stuff we're talking about. But the first chapter, Pat Flynn, who is the author, introduces this great exercise, because he's talking about like people have these dreams of starting a business before they figure out the vision for their life. So they may end up making a business, creating a business, launching a business that actually does not align with their lifetime, with their long-term goals and vision for their life. So he started in that book by figuring out the vision for his life, for our lives, helping us figure out and set the vision for our life. So then if we come up with a business idea, that business idea matches and fits into that vision for our life. And that to me, that practice was so life-changing, and that practice is what we're going to talk about right now. So I just said envision your life, envision your ideal day, but I said do it in these different categories. And what Pat Flynn did, I'll show you an example of my little 12-year kind of thing. And I'm not going to go over my personal goals because I feel like, I mean, again, it's personal, and also I think sometimes when you hear other people's goals, it may influence you to start thinking that you have to have certain goals. And so I leave that up to you. But basically, Pat Flynn says in that book, get a piece of paper and then basically letter size kind of piece of paper. And in that piece of paper, fold it from the center. Let me put this. Let me see. Let's do this. All right, let's do this. Okay, let's say, this is a piece of paper, imagine, right? Fold it into 4 quadrants. So fold this piece of paper, or just draw a line down the center and then one down the center this way. And in each of these categories, write an area of life that is important to you. So this could be different for every single person, right? But one area could be, for example, health. One area could be finances. One area could be family / relationship, right? Another area could be, I don't know, for me, it's like YouTube is like one area. But basically you can just break it down however, you want. But keeping it to 4 has really helped me, because I remember back when I was in college, I would try to set goals in so many different areas of my life. And over time, I didn't remember any of my goals, off the top of my head in all these different areas. But keeping it to 4 and all on one piece of paper has helped me so much throughout the years, because this piece of paper, it literally can be folded. You can put it in your pocket. I have it on my wall, and basically it's so simple to look at. In one glance, you can remember your goals. And I'll show you a little example of my kind of 12-year, without going too much into the details of each kind of quadrant. Here, actually, I'll show you this. This is a bigger page. It's easier a little bit. This is my 3-year. We're going to talk about the 3-year and the 1-year in a little bit, but it's the same format, right? So we got these quadrants, these 1, 2, 3, 4, and the camera is reversed, so it's hard to figure out where I'm pointing. But as you can see here, we got these quadrants, and what you want to do, and this is what's helped me, as you envision your life, your ideal day in the future in these categories, right? So whatever your categories are, like fitness, finances, whatever it may be, work, whatever categories you have, envision the ideal future in 12 years in each of these categories. And then write bullet points of, my health is, whatever goal, not really, it's not even a goal. It's more like a vision, right? I don't know if it's for me, my 12-year kind of vision, I practice Qigong a lot. Qigong is a practice. It's hard to see, so it's fine. I'm going to do graphics, so I'm not going to use the paper, version for the video, but, one of my fitness goals, so to speak, or visions for future in 12 years when I'm 41 is that I do a practice called Qigong, and I want to do that every day. In 12 years, I want to be, practicing my Qigong practices every single day. So that's a example of vision. So as I'm envisioning my ideal, as I'm putting myself in that ideal future, as I'm walking through my day and envisioning these different areas of my life, what they look like, I do envision I see the 41-year-old PJ doing Qigong, just I'll probably put a little B-roll that my awesome friend Kyle shot of me doing Qigong, but I'm probably doing Qigong. I think it's one of those practices that definitely as you get older becomes more valuable. But nonetheless, so that's just an example, right? So go in your own life, envision in your own dream, in your own imagination. What does my health look like if that's an area for you? What do my finances look like? What am I doing for work? And then write bullet points. I've done vision settings and goal settings where I just like wrote like a lot of like paragraphs and this and that. But like I found that this way of bullet points is the most consistent and reliable kind of way for me to do it, where I remember these. I don't remember paragraphs. Sometimes I find journals or, journal entries, random like pieces of paper I've written down on, stuff like that, where I've had these paragraphs of my dream life and I'm like, I don't remember this at all. But anytime I've done this practice, I do remember these. These bullet points just make it so easy to remember, and ultimately it's important to read these every day and remember them, or put them somewhere where you'd see it every day, on your wall, in your workspace, in your room, wherever, make sure you see these or read these every day. Because if you don't remember them, I think there's nothing worse than to like write a ton of goals or vision or, dreams in a notebook and then completely forget about it. And then fortunately you read it years later and you're like, wow, all of this came true. But like for most of us, we have to pay attention to it consistently. So read those every day, but that's our first kind of practice that we're going to do. Okay, so the 12-year vision, 12-year plan, the 12-year envisioning practice, that was the first part of this kind of like 4 or 5 part series of processes and steps that we're going to take. Now we're going to do something very simple, and I'll show you an example of it here. So first of all, shout out to Pat Flynn for that 4-quadrant method. Again, like you can either fold the paper, or you can just like I've done, you can just draw 4 quadrants. You can do it digitally. I like doing everything kind of physically. And for some reason, I think pen to paper is just so much more powerful when it comes to journaling. And it's real. It's like I don't know. It becomes more embedded, I feel like, in your subconscious. But that's just me. It's your personal preference how you want to do it. Now, what I've done and what I recommend you do is, I heard sometime or somewhere that it's, and I said this earlier about the 12-year kind of vision, but a goal that may seem very, very unrealistic and unattainable in 1 year becomes all of a sudden very, very attainable and real and tangible in 3 years time span. So I've been using the 3-year framework for a long time. The 12-year is kind of like a new addition, but that's just to kind of set like the absolute biggest vision for my life and then slowly break it down into smaller chunks. And that's what we're doing now. So the 12-year is to give you direction. Imagine you're on a ship and the 12-year is the absolute end destination. Imagine you're a cruise that's like making like stops along the way, but it's going to one destination, but along that destination is making these stops. The 3-year, the 1 year, and the 12-week that we're going to go over, those are those stops. And basically what you want to do is you want to do the same thing that we did with the 12-year for the 3-year, and you want to figure out your age in 3 years from now, the year in 3 years from now, because the goal is we want to make it real. We want to make it tangible. And then look at your 12-year bullet points here, whatever you had, 12-year bullet points. All right, I'm just going to stop doing this. It's not working. But just look at your 12-year bullet points in each of those areas and look at what would be a smaller chunk, a smaller version of that bigger vision, right? So like, this is just a complete random, thing. But like, let's say you've said like, I want to have, I don't know. I want to have like 1 million subscribers or something like that, right? Like let's say you want to do YouTube or something. Or, my podcast or whatever. It's like I have 1 million subscribers or whatever, right? Then that's the 12-year. And then break that down, which someone would probably hear that and be like, 1 million in 12? I mean, I think that's too small of a goal. I think like you could probably do 10 million in 12-year time span. But nonetheless, break the goals down into smaller chunks. And I try to not add any new goals in my 3-year and my 1 year and my 12 week, like everything is based on the 12 year. And that's why we start with that. The big vision comes first. Like, where are we really, really ultimately trying to go? And then those goals, those little visions, let's break them down, make them smaller. So like in the example of the 1 million subscribers, okay, in 3 years, I want to have 100,000 subscribers, or something like that. So that's like a smaller chunk of that bigger vision. Now, that's pretty self-explanatory. So let's move on to the 1 year right here. Now, the 1 year, again, is the same process. Now, look at your 3-year goals or your 12-year, if you want, and say, okay, what is the smaller chunk of that, right? So like, what would a year, by the end of, again, how old will you be a year from now? What year will it be? And just break the bigger goal of the 3-year into a smaller chunk for the 1 year. Now, this is another fun part that I think is truly helpful, and I just recently kind of discovered this thing. So I came across a book title in a book, which the title intrigued me, and then I ended up giving it a listen. The book is called The 12-Week Year, or something like that, like 12-week year. And I was like, what is this talking about? Like, is it talking about, doing like basically the equivalent of a year's work in 12 weeks? And that's what it's talking about. That's a whole book. The idea is, these guys, these like business consultants or whatever, they did this kind of experiment, or this kind of strategy. They implemented this strategy, this 12-week year strategy. And basically they were talking about how like most companies say yearly goals, right? They have yearly, yes, they may do quarterly goals, right? But they have this yearly goal, and it's a big goal and the team gets excited about it, but it seems kind of like far in the future. Like when it's January, December feels pretty far away, right? So like if you don't hit your goals for January, you're like, okay, well, I still have, 11 more months, to hit that big year-long goal. But they said that they basically would go into these companies and they would consult them to throw away, like, do not at all use a 1-year goal at all, right? Now, I'm not as hardcore as these guys, so I'm not doing that. I like the year. I'm doing, again, like, you got to make these things personalized, right? And experiment, trial and error, and see what works for you. What works for me is to have the year long, and then break it down into a 12-week period, which is, a 3-month, 1 season period. And so basically these guys experimented with this 12-week year strategy and throwing away the yearly goals. And they were talking about how like when people have a yearly goal, it's like they don't have that sense of urgency. They don't have like the last quarter, like people get fired up. They want to hit their goals. They want to hit their yearly goals. So they get this sense of urgency. They get this extra motivation, like I gotta get shit done kind of like attitude. And they just like, most companies that they worked with, like Q4 of the year, they make a lot of progress because people get that like, like I got, the finish line kind of is in sight. So they now get fired up to basically, finish the year strong. But they experimented by doing that instead of having a yearly goal so that people get fired up in, in 9 months from now, from the beginning of the year, like, oh, by Q4 of the year, they get fired up. They did this thing where completely throw away the yearly goals, only have 12-week goals. So your year is now 12 weeks. You're imagining that your year is now a 12-week period. So you set these goals. Obviously, probably they won't be as big as the yearly goal would be, but you set these goals, and that's the goals that the employees have. So that's what those guys talked about in that book. And I really like the concept of looking at your 12-week goals as if your yearly goals don't even exist, right? Like your yearly goals are there to give you direction, but it's really your 12-week goals and plans that move you towards that. Okay, so the 12-week kind of planning and the goals that we have here, these visions that we have for our 12-week plan or goals or whatever, the good thing about the 12-week just time span is that it's long enough that you can actually accomplish meaningful things, right? Like a week is not long enough to do something super meaningful. Like, I mean, that's arguable, but you know what I mean? Like to like, for example, like for most people, if you're really trying to get in shape, it takes about 3 months of consistent work to start seeing results at that third month. I was a personal trainer when I was in college. So like, I had to always tell clients, like, do not give up until you have done this for 3 months, because the results really start showing in that third month. So it's the same thing here, where it's like, it's long enough, let's say, that you can accomplish meaningful things. You can accomplish meaningful goals. But it is short enough that gives you that sense of urgency that people experience at the end of the year, where they're like, I gotta get shit done, So that's why I like this 12-year framework. But now these goals that we have, and I keep saying the word goals, because whereas these other ones are kind of more like visions, like you can call them goals if you want, but like they're more like bigger visions, right? These 12-week ones, they are goals. They are more action oriented. So what I mean by that is, let's distinguish between the type of goals that we can have. We can have outcome goals and we can have action goals. As I've grown older, I have come to understand and believe and like action goals by like a factor of like 1,000, right? Obviously, you have to have outcome goals to know where you're going, where you're aiming, what's your direction. But what I have found actually accomplishes goals is action. So having action goals, I have found to be more impactful than just having outcome goals without any action goals. What I mean by action goals, I'll go ahead and explain this now too. Outcome goals is in that, let's go back to 1 million subscribers kind of outcome goal. I want to have 1 million subscribers. That is an outcome, right? That's an outcome goal. The action goal would be, I am going to, basically the action goal, you think, okay, what action would help me accomplish the outcome goal? And then you set a goal based on that action. So what action would help someone, help me, help you if you're a YouTuber, or who help, you, whatever goal you have, what action will help you accomplish that outcome, and then set a number to that, or how it works in your particular goal. So for example, what action helps you accomplish 1 million subscribers? Making good videos consistently, right? Like consistently putting out good videos. Well, the action goal, could be for your 12-week thing, it could be to like make 7, 10, 12 videos or whatever it may be for you, right? That could be, 12 would be a good number, because it's like, if I make 1 video a week, that would be 12 videos. So like 12 videos is the action goal. So my goal is to make 12 videos. So the outcome goal is there to give direction, but the action goal is what actually makes the outcome goal get accomplished. And what I have found in my life, is that it's the action goals, is focusing on the action goals, like not even like necessarily caring that much about the outcome, because the outcome, like for example, subscribers, right? I keep using that because that is like a goal of mine, not necessarily like 1 million, but it's just like, just to grow subscribers, right? Just to grow my YouTube. That is a goal of mine. So it's like the focusing on that goal has never led to the accomplishment of that necessarily. It's the actions that have led to the goal being accomplished. So I have come to learn and value these action goals so much, because they are the ones that have actually helped me manifest different things, right? So I am a big fan of action goals, and that's what you want to use your 12-week plan for mostly. You want to have action goals instead of just outcome goals, right? So that is basically the end of that section. Now, I preface this part by saying that the things that we're going to talk about in this section have probably changed my life way more than anything that we discussed thus far. That doesn't negate the fact that the things we discussed thus far are the bedrock of what we're talking about now. But putting this into practice is what has really helped me, make progress in various areas of my life. And that's creating systems. I watched a good video one time that I think it's like a viral YouTube video. It was called like Set Systems, Not Goals. And there's another book called Atomic Habits, which is super popular in the productivity kind of habits space. It is the most popular book on that topic, but he talks about systems too a lot. So that's another place that, he has this really good quote that goes, I'm going to completely butcher this. I wasn't intending on mentioning this quote, but it goes along the lines of like, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the quality or the level of your system, something along those lines. But basically, systems, understanding how to create a structure, create a routine, create a process, a system that repeats day in and day out, that has helped me more than anything, like, when it comes to goal setting and stuff. Having a system, having a structure that repeats has been the number one most impactful thing I've ever done to help me accomplish goals. Now, we're going to talk about another idea I got from somewhere else. So far we've talked about a lot of different ideas I've gotten from different places, plus my own trial and errors and my own experiments and experiences. This idea I got from a gentleman named Tom Bilyeu. I believe that's how you pronounce his last name. But he is one of the founders of Quest bars, and he is also a founder. It's basically what he does now. He doesn't do the Quest anymore, but he is the founder of a podcast called Impact Theory, which if you are in like the self, improvement kind of space, you have probably heard of it. But he basically said this thing one time in a podcast or something I was listening to, and I really enjoyed this. For someone like me that can get stuck in the airy-fairy, mystical, non-practical part of goals, it's like, wouldn't it be cool if I had 1 million subscribers or something like that, and then daydreaming about that and getting stuck in there and not practicalizing, if that's even a word, and bringing down to earth the big vision. It's like Gary Vee calls it like the clouds and the dirt. And I like the analogy a lot. It's like the clouds is like the big ideas, the big vision, the big philosophical kind of understandings or, ideas that you have. And the dirt is more like the practical day in and day out kind of actions that help you align and manifest kind of like the clouds. You need both. But, some of us are more cloud people. Some of us are more dirt people. Ideally, we want to balance ourselves so that we have both. But nonetheless, Tom Bilyeu said one thing that really helped me. And he said, no bullshit, what would it take? And this is so simple, saying it out loud, it sounds so dumb now. But basically, this has helped me so much, right? Anytime I have a goal, anytime I have a vision, anytime I have something I want to accomplish, now I ask myself, no bullshit, what would it take? Be straight up. What are all the actions that is going to take you to actually 1 million subscribers? What are all the actions that's going to actually help you accomplish that goal? No bullshit. What would it take? It would take making fire videos, making amazing videos, getting better at every single part of the craft, better lighting, better this, better background, better, delivery, better outline, better all of this. It would take, and then within making good video, no bullshit, what tasks, what would it take? No bullshit, what tasks are involved within that? Well, when it comes to making videos, for example, this is just my process, outline, set up the lights, set up the camera, set up everything, edit, which may take a few days, and then export, which may take a whole night, thumbnail, description, tags, what else? Schedule it and then publish it. That's basically all. Those are, no bullshit, what would it take? Those are all the steps that it would take to make a video. Not even a good video, just a video for me. So having this question, asking myself that question helps me identify all the steps. Now, once I identify the steps, I try to make it repeatable. So I try to think, what are the tasks that if repeated, this is like an action goal, right? What are the tasks that if repeated would help me accomplish my goal? Whatever that goal may be, right? So in the case of this video situation that I've been talking about, this example I've been using, the tasks that need to be repeated are all those things I mentioned: the outlining, the setting up, the shooting, all, so on and so forth. So all those tasks need to be repeated because I'm trying to be consistent. So now anytime you have, at least the way I see it, anytime you have a process that repeats, so basically you have your vision, your big long-term goals, that the outcome goals, so to speak, that we talked about, you have that big 12-year vision, you have that, right? So you then ask yourself, what are the actions that, if repeated, would help me accomplish that goal? And now this is like an action goal, right? So it's like actions: shoot videos, make better videos, outline this, that, 10 other things. But basically, these are repeatable things. If I repeat these tasks, by repeating these tasks, therefore I am consistently putting out good videos, then what ends up happening is that it helps me accomplish my outcome goal as a result. The time span, is not in our control as to when it happens, but like, you can control the actions, you can control the work, but not the fruits of the work, to quote Bhagavad Gita. But basically, yeah, so you control those processes, those tasks. Now, when you have these repeatable tasks, anytime you have repeatable tasks in anything, you have a process, you have an opportunity to systematize that process. Systematize, another word for it could be create a routine, create a schedule, create a structure. The way I do it is I have this process for videos, and I plug each of these, depending on how long each takes or my availability and the time I have. I get these tasks, like I literally try to drag and drop it. Like I have this this kind of calendar that it's like a whiteboard but has the days of the week. And what I do is whenever I have these tasks, these process steps, I plug in each one into a different day. So just like if you were to go to the gym and if you have a split, one day you would do chest and another day you would do back. So it's Monday's chest day, International Chest Day, shout out. And then back day, and then leg day, and then arm day, or shoulder day, arm day. That used to be my college split, so I know it by heart. But you have these processes that you want to repeat because in order to get the outcome goal that you want of getting stronger, bigger arms, abs, you have to be consistent. You can't just do it once and then get the result. You have to have the process that repeats. So just like in the gym, you would plug these action steps, these tasks. You ask yourself, no bullshit, what would it take? And you've gotten this list of tasks. Just like in the gym, you would plug each one to a different day. So Monday you do this, Tuesday you do this, so on and so forth. Now you have to make that. I genuinely think you have to, if you want to really accomplish goals, you have to make that for every goal you have. Because if you don't, in my experience, if I don't plug it in, if I don't put that into the calendar, the chances of it not happening, in 2020, in 2022, I did an absolute shitty job at being consistent with videos. Whereas in 2021, I did so many videos. I produced and put out so many videos consistently. The thing that was missing for me in 2022 was that I wasn't, because my job situation happened, I had a lot more responsibility, I had less time on my hands, and I was not plugging in my own processes into days, into a calendar, and saying, okay, on this day I'm gonna outline, on this day I'm gonna shoot, on this day I'm gonna, edit, on this day I'm gonna export, on this day I'm gonna post. Literally plug each task into your calendar. Assign it a day. That's how you create a system. So just like in the gym, the Monday would always be chest day. Well, in your life, create systems for every single goal, create processes for every single goal. And so then Monday is the outline day, if you're trying to make a video, or Monday is the DMing day if you're trying to build your brand, you're trying to, outreach people, or Monday is I send cold emails, or whatever it may be, whatever steps that you need to take to accomplish your goals. just like the gym, have Monday is this day, Tuesday is this day for your goals. That will change your life. If you not just having that, right, but actually sticking to it will change your life so drastically that by a year from now, you will be so proud. You will not recognize, the life that you've been able to accomplish for yourself and achieve for yourself and manifest for yourself by just following this system, creating a system and then following it, these processes and following them. Because another thing I've realized is like time will, like 2022 was not a good year for me. Let's just say that. And I realize whether or not you are consistent with your processes, with your systems, with your goals, time goes on. So whether you accomplish them or not, time will move on. So if you don't create these systems and don't stick to them, time is going to pass anyways. But when you do stick to them, you're going to look back and time becomes your ally. Because like, for example, like some of the things I have in my life that are routines that are set in place that I never skip are things such as meditation. I meditate every day and it's just like a habit. It's just like a routine. And so the time goes, but then I look back and it's like, oh wow, the whole year I meditated every day, right? So thanks to that routine, time became an ally. But when you don't have these structures, when you don't have these systems, time passes, but you don't get any closer to your goals. Matter of fact, you're probably getting further. So it's like, make time be your ally by having a structure and a system in place that repeats, that you stick to and adhere to. And in a year from now, when time passes, as it always does, your life, you will look back and give yourself a pat on the back and be like, dude, you crushed it. Like, that was awesome. And all you did was create a system and just stuck to it. And you can accomplish almost any goal. I truly believe that by just doing that process. So now that you have your process, you've figured it out, now you just got to repeat it. Anytime you have a new goal, repeat these steps. Ask yourself, no bullshit, what would it take? Figure out all the steps, figure out which ones repeat. Sometimes not all tasks repeat, right? Sometimes there are things you do that are not repeatable. So in those cases, you may create short-term processes like, or may not even be a process, like maybe a task you can get done in one day. But anytime you have a repeatable thing, you want to systematize that and then schedule the task, the action step, the steps in your process, schedule those into your calendar. Each day is assigned its task, or each task is assigned its day, and then repeat this process. Not only repeat the system, but repeat this for every goal that you have. And by doing that, I genuinely believe you can accomplish so much. And boom, just like that, we took our unfathomable, massive 12-year vision, turned it into realistic goals. Then we turned those realistic goals into a process, a system, a structure that then we repeat. And through that unfathomable vision, that 12-year vision that you had, has become a manageable process that you repeat. And next thing you know, you open your eyes and boom, you are there. You're living that goal, that dream, that vision that you have set. Now, none of us can predict what God has in store for us. What life has in store for us. There are things that are destined for us. There are things that will happen. It's like, I truly believe it's like this life has these checkpoints that are like absolutely destined. You can look at everything as like that, but I found it most meaningfully, it works in my life where I see these things that are destined, like couldn't have predicted, didn't set a goal for it, didn't anticipate it, didn't have a vision for it, but it feels destined. You meet someone, you go somewhere, you fall in love with a job you never knew existed, you pick up a new hobby you didn't even think about, to plan for, these things happen. So there's things that are destined, but it's like if you look at it as like a timeline, it's like there's a destiny point, checkpoint here, there's a destiny checkpoint here, a destiny checkpoint here. But between checkpoint, this destiny checkpoint and this destiny checkpoint, you get to decide what you accomplish there, how you want to spend that and spend that time and how you want to go about it. And that's how you kind of co-create life with destiny. It's like, yes, destiny has things in store for me. God has things in store for me. And there are things I want. And like, let's do this together. Let's co-create, like, let's team up and just like co-create, literally co-create. And I have found that life is the most fun that way. When I used to live my life with this mindset of like, just like let whatever happens, cause just completely like feeling like, which was rooted in a false understanding, but just like kind of let whatever happens, believing that whatever happens is what's meant to happen, and that is true. But I am here also to participate. Some of us disengage from our participation in the world and don't set goals, don't have vision, don't have a clear destination that we want to get to. So we're kind of going, what's that saying? Like to and fro, or like, we're like a leaf in the wind, and we're just like kind of in this river of life, and it's just taking us wherever. Whereas I have found that the most fun I have experienced in life is when, yes, life is things will happen, what's meant to happen will happen, but you also have agency, you have choice, you can co-create, you can choose what you want, you can decide, you can make a process, you can set goals for yourself, you can, ask yourself, no bullshit, what would it take? Processize it, systematize it, and make shit happen. And life gets so freaking fun, It just gets so freaking awesome. And to me, that's the best way to live. Check back with me in 10 years and I'll give you an update if that's still the best way to live. But as a 29-year-old, so far, I have come to understanding that I have been the happiest in my life when I have done that. When I have decided what I want. Of course, destiny is going to happen. Of course, what's meant to happen will happen. But I also get to play in this game of life and co-create and bring things into the world that didn't exist before. And you have those gifts, those seeds within you as well that you are here to offer. And so often when we don't answer these calls, these gifts, it's like, dude, like they are for you too. Like, even though like usually when you give a gift to someone, it's like for them, right? But like when you give these gifts, these seeds of inspiration that are within you, when you figure out what you want and you actually go after it and you make shit happen, like, dude, like you give gifts to yourself and the world. Like it's both. Like everyone benefits. It's like, it's the best way to live. And I think so many of us are just not doing that. Like we're like on autopilot, on society's schedule, until those plans of society fall apart. And then now we're like in midlife crisis. So it's just better to do it this way, where you figure out what you want, you co-create life, you put your imprint on life, and you have fun with it. You add your gifts to the world, and it just becomes a much more meaningful existence. So I hope that this video helps you. I know that I poured my heart and soul into this video because, and I was so excited about it because this stuff has genuinely changed my life for the better. Like these videos, right? Like everything I talked about, my entire YouTube channel, which has brought me so much joy, not just because of the outcomes, but just the process of it is so fun for me and has been so fruitful in and of itself, regardless of the outcome. The outcomes I'm so appreciative of, and all the subscribers I've gained, the positive, awesome feedback, and hearing that videos have been helpful. But like all this stuff I talked about in this video are things that have led to something like my YouTube channel to exist. I had to ask myself, the first time I did these exercises, I did not have a YouTube channel. I had not asked myself, what do I want? But when I got silent, quiet, meditated, really contemplated on what I want, like there's things that for a lot of us come up throughout life, and so when we choose to actually listen to them, be like, all right, I hear you. There's something that wants to be birthed through me, an inspiration, a creation, something, and I'm going to listen, and then when you do that, you co-create with life. And I feel like life literally becomes, it's just a different plane of existence. That's like, until then is unavailable, and you've never experienced, but like this stuff can change your life to such a big degree that making this video just had me so excited because I knew how helpful this stuff can be. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that encourages you to set some goals, create some visions, create some timetables, create some plans. And again, at the end of all this, I will say a quote I heard Big Sean, the rapper, quote. It's not by him, but I heard him say it. He said, "Man plans and God laughs," and it's basically like none of us can predict like, you know, what the future holds, but like not having a plan is also not awesome. Like it's like gosh, another thing that's been really helpful for me, or I've heard, is like plans are useless, but planning is indispensable. And I think that's such a fire quote. I don't know who it's by off the top of my head, but mere planning, doing all this stuff, you know, and I'm kind of saying this at the end, like, yes, like things will happen, you know, life will ebb and flow and we'll adapt and move with that. But not having plans, planning is indispensable. Not having these plans is not the right approach. So getting clarity about your life, getting clarity about your vision, realizing that like society at some point, if it hasn't already for you, will run out of things to give you to do. You know, at some point you're going to have to choose what story, as Donald Miller would put it, what story you want to be a part of, what story you want to write. You are the hero of your own story. So what story you want that to be, you get to decide that to a large degree, especially, you know, knock on wood, in first world countries where you have the freedom to decide that. So anyways, I hope that this video helps you. I hope that it helps you get a clear vision for your life, and then turn that vision, that big unfathomable vision, into a meaningful, repeatable process that helps you actualize your goals in a very practical way. And it's awesome to see. So again, I hope it helps you. Let me know your experience with any of this stuff. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Thank you for your time if you watched this video thus far. If you enjoyed this type of content, this type of video, please like the video. That'll help the algorithm. It'll show my video to more people who could benefit from it. And please subscribe to my channel, as it would mean the world to me. And also, I think, I will do my best week in and week out to bring the best videos to you. So I'm sure that you won't be disappointed. So thank you so much for your time. Again, my name is PJ. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope to see you guys next time. Until then, take care.